Hello, and welcome again to The Bridge, a ministry of the Church of God Seventh day British Conference. My name is Robert Crawford, your host, and with me is my co host, Avril Hargreaves. Today, I have a profound question for you. Would you believe in God if He gave you a miracle or a great supernatural breakthrough for an issue you're going through? This week, we're going to hear from one of our sisters in the church from the United States, Jackie Reynolds, who believed before receiving a miracle, but her miracle has increased her faith to no end, leading to her knowing God more intimately. Listen to her story. I hope it will help you believe in God and His miracle working abilities and activities for all who believe in and love Him. And as you hear this story from the horse's mouth, as they say, I hope you will be truly blessed.
Hello, Jackie. Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for coming on the program to share your testimony.
Hello, Jackie.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I just want to ask you just to introduce yourself. Give us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and then to start off your testimony, just give us a little bit of a background of, the environment you grew up in. Let's just set the scene for your testimony.
Okay. Well, my name is Jacqueline Reynolds. I'm originally from Jamaica, West Indies. I am the second of six children. The first from both my parents once they were married. So I have an older sister who still lives in Jamaica, by the way. And there are three boys, three girls in my family. So I'm a family person. I grew up with my grandmother and grandfather and my aunt. My parents migrated when I was 3. My first brother was a year and a half. So we they came to Brooklyn, and 10 years later, I came when I was 12 to live in Brooklyn, New York with them. I also am a single mother of 2 children. I have a boy and a girl. My son is older, he's 22. His name is James. And my daughter just turned 18. She is Jasmine.
Can you just tell us a little about your church life background in brief?
Well, I grew up in a spiritual Baptist. A godmother of mine started taking me to church when I was young. My grandmother was uh, Methodist, but she wasn't well, so I went to church with her. And then after that, I'm not even sure how, but I got into the Church of God Seventh Day, and I started from there. It was, I forgot which branch, but I got baptized there. And just, I think, a year before I migrated to the States.
How old were you then? And how did you find God?
Well, I was 12 when I came here, and how I found God, to be honest, I grew up with my grandmother. She taught me everything. It starts from home. If you see and hear your parents talking about God, and in the good time, in the bad times, you kind of learn this is life. This is who He is. And that's what she taught me. My grandfather really wasn't religious, but I learned everything through her. And to be honest, all her friends. So she was a prayer warrior. And it's funny enough, my mom became like her. She didn't want to when she was younger. She'll tell me stories. She couldn't wait to grow up and move out and so on. But now she is a prayer warrior. It's something you learn from seeing your parents. And now I'm learning from myself. As I grow up, I'm praying my kids will follow me. Yeah, but that's how I learn.
Mentioned that you grew up in the faith, so it's part of. So when did you got baptized? You say, when did you get baptized, and did you experience anything like, especially individually, that really pushed you towards Christ?
Um, I grew well. Like I said, it was a little bit before I was 12, and it was it was a spiritual Baptist church back then that I went to, and they were strict, but my godmother was always encouraging, and all the other girls there were Christians too, the young girls, and I wanted to do good. I wasn't one of those kids who wanted to just run the streets, and like I said, my grandmother taught me well, so I knew that it was just a matter of time to settle down. So I wanted to live good, and you heard about fire and brimstone. I didn't want to go to hell. So I knew that from then. No matter what, hell wasn't for me. So I gave my life to the Lord. I was young. And it hasn't been easy and it hasn't been straight. I know I strayed a little here and there, but I kept with the Lord because hell is not where I want to go. And I love God. I do.
Sister Jackie, I have heard your testimony. It's an amazing story, and I'm always blessed whenever I hear your testimony, your story. Um, can you tell us a little of that story? Can you share that testimony with us? Because I believe it has the power to change lives and to point people to understand that God does work miracles even in these days.
Okay, Pastor, thank you. I am more than happy to share my testimony. I we're all believers, and you think you're in a sea of believers and God probably doesn't see you individually. And it's true, so like but he does. He sees your individual need, and he says he knows every hair on your head. He knows the number. But it sounds so cliche, but God really does. Here is my story. I I I'll start from where I think is important, okay? I live in Canarsie, Flatbush. Like I said, I came here, did junior high college. I worked for a bank for 18 years, and then I went into nursing. And I'll tell you why I'm starting from there. Nursing, I wanted to do OBGYN. God didn't put me there. He put me in telemetry and then geriatrics and then OBGYN. I said, well, I didn't want to work with people with heart issues, didn't care about it. But he knew why. I worked there for almost 10 years. And all of that came back during my testimony. I see now why he put me there. Um, left there because I went and furthered my education. I wanted a better position. My supervisor kept me on hold for a year. I said, look, I'm losing the difference in pay. I'm losing the experience in learning and being a better nurse. I left. I went to another company where they send nurses out. It was intake nurses. They send patients, um, nurses and physical therapists and occupation speech therapists to take care of them once they're out of rehab or hospitals. So I'm saying when I was there, to be honest, I didn't like it because I didn't get to touch nurse patients, deal with them. I was on the phone all day. But God put me there, and I was kind of angry why this first supervisor didn't hire me so I could have grown where I thought I should have grown. But God had a reason. But anyway, I turned 48 at some point, and I said, wait, well, look at me. I had some extra pounds around here, my stomach, the mid area, and behind your back. And I'm not really like fat, but I was fluffy, and I wanted to be fit and run around with my kids. I had teenagers then, right? Um, my speech is still a little slow, so kind of bear with me. So my teenagers, they want to go places, they want to do things, and I like doing things with them. So I said I wanted to turn 50, which was going to be about 2 years from me at that point, and I wanted to look fabulous and be fit. So I started working out and taking care of myself. I started playing tennis, and there's a park in the neighborhood where you walk. Um, uh, one lap would be about a mile, so I did two every morning, showered, and went to work. So I had my routine. I started watching what I was eating, cutting out grease and oil and cutting down on fatty stuff. So I thought I did my medical, and I thought I was in the perfect health. And then I noticed when I'm playing tennis, running around for the ball, I couldn't run back and forth. I was out of breath. Every time I lay down, even at night to sleep, I felt like the oxygen was up here, and I had to pick myself up just to catch my breath. So I folded the pillows at night, fluffed it up behind my back and behind my neck just to lift myself up to breathe. So I said, wait a minute, this all came back from my telemetry. Heart is working, that this sounded like congestive heart failure. I said, no, you have to have a history of, in more 90% of people, you have a history of it. So I said, Mom, is there anybody in our family that has congestive heart failure or any kind of heart issue? She said, no. I said, but Mom, you were in the hospital. She said, yeah, but it was something simple. Whatever it was, she didn't even remember. I said, no, okay. I kind of let it go. But after a few months, I noticed it got worse and worse. Then in May, I remembered exactly because Harry and Meghan got married in England. So I know it was that day, Saturday, they got married. Sunday, I went to the emergency room. That morning, I said, let me feed the kids. I couldn't even stand up to cook. I walked 1 block to McDonald's to get them something, a quick lunch, and couldn't make it back. I had to stop and just catch my breath. I said, this isn't good. So I called somebody. They said, call the ambulance. I said, no, I'm not going to create all this excitement. I didn't want to go to the hospital in an ambulance, and I didn't want that. So I waited. I sat on the steps outside. I called the kids. They got the food. And I said, I'm going to call a cab. So I did just that. I'm in the cab. I'm praying. I said, God, if I get to the hospital, because the hospital I was going to is the second largest hospital in the United States. It's a trauma center. And when you go to these hospitals, it's got everybody and everything. But you go there because if you get anything you need, they have the equipment for. So my mom said, go there. And she worked there. She's a retired nurse too. So I said, if I go there and it's crazy, I'm leaving. Well, God had it that I walked, and I was serious. You're smiling. I don't have patience for all of that. I walked in. First of all, the place was spotlessly clean. I've never seen the hospital so clean, so spotless. They had it redesigned. I said, God, I'm impressed. I was by myself. And I said, this is something. So I walked up to the nurse at the reception desk and I said to him, um, excuse me. And he said, what's your issue? So I said, I'm having problems breathing. I think there's a lot of pollen. It was May. And I thought, and the pollen count was high. I listened to the news. I said, I think it might be, I'm not sure, but I can't breathe. He said, well, what's your, tell me more. I said, I had to put the pillows up and so on. He said, just what I didn't want to hear. Sounds like congestive heart failure. I said, under my breath, the blood of Jesus. I said, you're not telling me I have no heart problems today. And he said, come with me. I walked into the emergency room. There was one person there. Now, remember, I said if I walked in and it was a madhouse, I was walking out. I had no right, no reason to leave. So I said, God, what is going on? There was nobody in the emergency room. Well, I sat down. In 40 minutes, I did 3 tests. They drew blood. And this is all, I knew what they were going to do. All from my experience working in telemetry. They did an echocardiogram, they did a 3D one, they did the telemetry, the one where they put the leads all over you and did, the telemetry reading. And all that I expected them to do. And then they had me waiting. The doctor came and he said, Miss Reynolds, I'm so sorry to tell you, but you have congestive heart failure. I said, Jesus. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to hear it. Didn't I said, God, I'm not going to accept this.
Mm.
But I he left me there. He said, I want you to stay here. There's no room upstairs in the telemetry room unit. And as soon as there was a room, we'll take you upstairs. We need you there for 24 hours and then you can go home. I said, okay. I waited in the emergency room for 3 days before they got a room, just laying there. Do you know what happened? As soon as he said that, the doors opened and a flood of people came in. It was so bad, the place, there was no standing room in the emergency room. There was no standing room. But at that point, I couldn't leave because I already signed in. I was already invested. So I laid there for 3 days. I had one friend come and take my necessities to wait for they were giving me Lasix to let me go to the bathroom. To go to the bathroom, I was right in uh, the gurney, I forgot what you call it, that you lay on, right next to, around the corner from the bathroom. There was constantly a line. I would just stand on the lines when I felt like I had to go. I was closer to the top. It was a madhouse, but it was clean. I would say that. But I waited 3 days. At the third night, they came, grabbed me, took me upstairs. Um, I spent the night and the day, and then by that night, they sent me home. So that was my experience in the hospital itself. But it came back that I had congestive heart failure.
What happened after that?
they I stayed there for the 24 hours upstairs finally. Um, and then I got sent home. I had to see my regular PCP, and he referred me to a cardiologist because I've never seen a cardiologist before. I never thought, I mean, I went once when, doing your regular medical, and I was fine. And he even pulled out my chart and said, "But you saw one." And he looked, he said, "You were fine." I said, "Yeah, that was like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know what happened." And he, we couldn't figure out. But I went to see the cardiologist. He was a gem of a person, really nice guy. And he sent me to see a surgeon who was in the office across the hall from it. So I saw him. He did the stress test, which was the last test that I needed to take. And that test came back that my ejection fraction, meaning the amount of blood my heart was pumping out, was only 18%. See, the heart has four chambers, two on top, two on bottom, and the whole idea about congestive heart failure is that your heart is so weak that it's pumping, but the blood is not being pumped from each chamber to to be dispersed to your brain. Your heart itself needs blood to work, and then through your body to your feet and back. So it goes around, comes around. So the amount being pumped out is only 18%. So it makes you not um, breathe properly. And while you breathe, while you're eating, you have to stop to catch your breath to eat. So multitasking becomes complicated. You cleaning the house, you have to stop and rest. And I notice all these things. So I realized that everything was adding up. So I said, "God, this really is happening." So whether at first I really wasn't happy about this, but I realized that everything that I was experiencing in the past couple of months really was what was leading up to the event. So I spoke to the surgeon and the both cardiologists, and the surgeon suggested that I put in a defibrillator. And I'm like, "A defibrillator?" At first, I thought he meant a pacemaker, but the defibrillator is that machine that when your heart gets so slow, it you know
Yeah.
comes in, it's electrocutes it back in action. And I'm like, "Well, what if?" I had so many questions. What if it's, I don't know, it just seems like to actually have one of those planted in your body, it just seemed like
Oh,
weird. I've worked with patients until we rule out that they had a heart attack. Then they get sent home. But when they have a heart attack, they get sent to another hospital, Bellevue, and then they're taken care of. So at this point, I'm saying, I don't want to walk around with this machine. How does it look? Is it like a big object sticking out in your chest? And he's explaining, well, and he's telling me it's right here. And Baba, I said, "Well, could you put it someplace else? I don't want to walk around with a dress and you see this big box right here." So he said, "Well, we could put it here." And I'm sitting there trying to be a little vain, but I didn't want this big thing. It just seemed weird. Like, why? And I wasn't afraid, but I didn't want to do surgery, to be honest, for somebody to cut me. But he kept um, saying, He did it 2,000 times at least. It's like pulling a tooth.
You can reach us via the details you can see on the screen. Our website is www.cog7thday.org.uk. Our email is thebridgetv@cog7thday.org.uk, or phone us on 0208 688 6094.
And let me remind you that we will be here every Sunday, 8 to 8:30 p.m. on Faith World TV, Sky Channel 588, and Freeview 264.